What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris Evans here with Zero Meter Chasers live here on July 20th. I did want to fire up a live video again. This is not my normal stream setup here, and I do want to make sure that the audio is working correctly here. So if somebody could put a comment in the chat and let me know that you guys can hear me here, just want to make sure that everything is working correctly. Again, I just wanted to fire up a live video because I know I've had a lot of tweets over the last couple of days about our severe risk as we get into tomorrow, July 21st. So I did want to cover some data here in the next couple of minutes and kind of cover some timing and impacts and what to expect as we get going here. Thank you guys. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Andrew, for letting me know that we're all good. So here we are looking at the Kentucky Mesonet website, and you can see these heat indices in far western Kentucky reaching and exceeding 100 degrees. And that is where we have those extreme heat warnings in purple there, where you can get heat index values anywhere from 105 to 110 degrees today. And then in the orange there is where you can see heat indices, that's your heat advisories, where you could see heat indices anywhere from the mid to upper 90s as we get into later to today. And then as we get along I-65 and further to the east, you'll see widespread lower 90s. We still have a very humid and moist atmosphere, which kind of sets the stage as we get into tomorrow. But the highest heat indices as we get into the afternoon and evening today will definitely be here in far western Kentucky, where we have that the heat warnings, the extreme heat warnings for today. And then here in orange is where we have that air quality alert for Louisville, and that is for the smoke that has moved in, the wildfire smoke that has moved in from Canada. Thankfully, it's not as bad as it was up in the Great Lakes in northern Ohio Valley, but you can definitely see some of that smoke and smog as you go outside, especially along the I-64 corridor. I was up in Bloomington over the weekend, and I'll tell you guys that smoke was awful. You could smell it and you could see it all over the city. So that smoke does not look to stay with us. It's actually going to get moved out tonight as we get kind of a weak advancing warm front. I did want to cover the severe risk for today. Before we get into tomorrow, before we cover anything in Kentucky, I want to make sure I reiterate this, that I think today's risk, which is an enhanced risk level 3 out of 5 in portions of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And I do think that this enhanced risk is going to be whatever happens today is going to set the stage for what will happen tomorrow. I do think that a widespread, significant severe weather is expected today. The Storm Prediction Center has upgraded to a 10% SIG 1 tornado risk here in portions of Iowa and Wisconsin. If you guys haven't seen some of my tweets on my personal page, some of the soundings in this area are just ridiculous. I mean, some of the photographs up here definitely support EF2 plus tornadoes as we get into the afternoon and evening today. And then you will see we have that 30% SIG 1 wind risk as well. So I do think that we'll see some significant widespread severe weather here in portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And exactly what happens tonight, we're going to look at some data here in the next couple of minutes. We'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But whatever happens tonight is going to have a direct effect on what happens tomorrow here in Kentucky. And then if we look at the hail risk here, you will see that 15% SIG 1 hail risk as well. So all hazards on the table today in the upper Ohio Valley, Midwest, in portions of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And then as we get into tomorrow, and I shift down here to Kentucky, that's where we finally start to get into the action here with severe weather in the lower Ohio Valley. You'll see the SPC did just release the outlook. And I'm going to do something that I don't often do, but I did want to look at the text from the SPC here and kind of see what the SPC is talking about. And then we'll kind of cover some of the risks that the SPC is talking about as well. So if we go down here, the most interesting thing that I've seen from the latest update from the SPC is it's talking about our two threats. So we'll have it says the evolution of overnight convection will play a large role in development of thunderstorm activity across the Ohio Valley on Tuesday. It appears that the remnant convection ongoing at the start or just ahead of the surface front across northern Kentucky will likely re-intensify and continue to expand south and east during the morning as daytime daytime heating begins. So we're not just going to have one round of storms with this enhanced risk with the setup on Tuesday. It's definitely a two-round type of setup. The first round, and we're going to look at this here in some model data in a minute, but the first round looks to be more of a primarily damaging wind round, especially where that enhanced risk is currently placed in far northeastern Kentucky, near the I-75 corridor and portions to the east. And then as we keep going, though, if we keep reading, it's interesting because the SPC says additional thunderstorm development is likely along and ahead of the front through the afternoon with increasing forcing with approaching short waves. The deep layer shear may become more perpendicular, supporting a supercell or two as the front sags south with the potential for large hail and perhaps a tornado. Confidence in this scenario is on the lower end, and the primary hazard is expected to be damaging winds. So the SPC is still highlighting that second risk, and that's the risk that I've kind of been talking about here for the last 12 to 24 hours, where it does look like we'll have some redevelopment in the afternoon that'll lead to some widespread supercells here, especially along the I-65 corridor and portions to the east. But I did want to cover that timing. They did say that there is no SIG-1, basically no significant severe weather that's outlined right now from the Storm Prediction Center, and that is just due to the limited confidence that we have. We have to see what happens tonight, what happens overnight. We'll look at that here in 1 second. I did want to go through the threats. We do have a 5% tornado risk, basically from I-65 and points off to the north and east. This was extended just a little bit far to the southeast, and it would not surprise me to see this 5% tornado risk get expanded basically down to Bowling Green, I think, as we get to the overnight update. You'll see our primary risk as we get into tomorrow is the wind risk. Again, we have that 45% wind risk from Lexington and points off to the northeast, and then the 30% from Madisonville, basically the I-69 corridor here and portions to the east. So anywhere in central and eastern Kentucky are at an elevated risk for damaging winds tomorrow. And then we do have that 15% hail risk, and that'll come with those supercells in the afternoon. Again, we're going to have to see exactly where those supercells develop as we get into the afternoon, and that's going to be highly dependent on what happens in the morning. So again, it's a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for basically the I-64 and I-75 corridor and portions to the east. But I will say this before we even dive into any data. I don't want anybody to get caught up on, oh, I'm only in a slight risk tomorrow, because I do think that this setup, like a 30% wind risk on the old SPC outlook, was an enhanced risk. Now, if they just added the SIG-1, which is the possibility for significant wind risk, everybody in the red would now be in an enhanced risk. So I do think that the new outlook from the SPC, the new way that they're kind of doing things, can change the outlooks a little bit and kind of have like a windshield wiper effect. So I don't want you to get caught up in the outlooks. We'll kind of cover exact timing and locations here as we go into model data. So I did want to cover some model data here. We'll start with the HRRR. And again, I wanted to look at today because, again, today is going to be very important to figuring out where the best severe risk we get into tomorrow. So here we are at about 5, 6 o'clock. You'll see we don't have very many widespread showers and storms here in Kentucky as we get through our Monday. I don't think we'll see very many storms. Might be an isolated storm threat maybe out here in far eastern Kentucky, but not very much here in Kentucky. Now, if we zoom out, you'll see a complex of storms here along the Illinois and Wisconsin border. And if I zoom up, or if we go fast forward here a couple more hours, that's when you can start to see those supercells developing here around 8 o'clock in the Wisconsin and Iowa vicinity, and these supercells are going to carry that all hazards risk. That is why the SPC has upgraded to a 10% hatch tornado risk for today. I do think that a couple of significant tornadoes could be possible here in portions of Iowa and Wisconsin as we get into the afternoon. But the interesting thing to note is as we get to about 11 o'clock, you'll see those supercells kind of congeal into a line, and they're now pushing southward into Illinois. So watching how those supercells develop in the early afternoon, exactly where they congeal into a line and where that line is around, let's say, midnight tonight, is going to be very important to see how is the HRRR handling the setup. We'll see. No model data is going to handle a setup like this perfect. And the reason for that is because we have an anomaly amount of wind shear with the setup. We don't usually have a jet streak like I'm going to show you here in a second. We don't usually have that in late July. Not in the Midwest and not in the Ohio Valley. So the model data is not going to handle this type of setup perfectly. But again, as we get into midnight, really we'll go to about 4 a.m. You'll see this line of showers and storm activity is going to be sagging south and east, like the SPC was hinting at in the outlook. But we'll have to see how well it can stay together. Again, I'm going to show the wind or the jet streak here in a little bit. You'll see we have a lot of embedded short waves, which will lead to more scattered shower and storm development and redevelopment as we get into the morning on Tuesday. And I think that's likely going to happen from a line from Peoria to Indianapolis to Cincinnati. You can kind of see that here on the HRRR. If I fast forward it here just a couple more hours, you can see some more scattered storm development here in portions of Illinois and Indiana. And all of this is kind of working its way southeast. So this will be wave one. We'll have to see exactly how that the supercells and possible QLCS tracks as we get into the overnight hours tonight. And then we'll have to see as we get into the morning, about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, what type of convection do we have ongoing up here in Indiana and Illinois. Because if this convection does continue to train over the same area, it could lead to flash flooding issues, and it could lower the severe threat out here in Ohio and West Virginia. And then I think maybe just south of that, this is why I'm kind of a little bit concerned about the I-65 corridor. If I fast forward it here to about 10 o'clock, you'll see those showers and storms are ongoing here from Indianapolis to Cincinnati. But if we go down a little bit here, you'll see most of Kentucky is dry. So we're going to be building in that heat, that instability as we get into the morning on Tuesday. And again, I'm going to show the jet streak as soon as we get through this. And you'll see we have a very strong jet streak that'll lead to the scattered storm and shower development. But in the morning time, I'm really worried about the I-75 corridor. I do think that damaging winds are going to be our primary threat with this first wave in the morning. Data here, HRRR has it at 10 a.m., which is a little bit earlier than it had it earlier today. So I'll say any time during the mid to late morning hours, we'll have to watch a complex of storms from Indiana tracking towards Cincinnati. Again, I think damaging winds will be the primary threat with this. I don't think there's a high tornado risk with it, but you could get an embedded tornado with it. And again, as we get into about 11 to 12 o'clock, you'll see the HRRR is really hinting at kind of redevelopment of this line along the I-75 corridor here from Cincinnati to Maysville. So we'll have to watch this threat here for damaging wind gusts and embedded tornadoes here in far northeastern Kentucky as we get into the morning. And then as we get into the afternoon, remember the SPC was kind of highlighting a secondary area of development. So here's that line kind of pushing in from Cincinnati, and it shows possible redevelopment near Lexington. The HRRR has been showing this for about the past couple of runs, 2 to 3 runs now. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get that storm development out here in eastern Kentucky along the Bluegrass and Western Kentucky parkways. But if we fast forward it here just a little bit, I'm going to go about 2 hours. You'll see this line of storms is going to be sagging south. And then as we get to about 4 or 5 p.m., you'll see more scattered shower and storm development is going to develop really from a line from I-65 and points east. I think that is the most that are at risk here. And these are likely going to be supercells. So we'll have to watch for large hail. We'll have to watch for damaging winds. And I do think there'll be an isolated tornado risk with these cells as we get into the early to late afternoon time frame. The HRRR showing these around 5 o'clock, could be a couple of hours earlier, could be a couple of hours later. But again, these supercells look most likely along the I-65 corridor and points off to the east. I would say right now, along the Western Kentucky parkways, looks like a really good spot for more scattered development in the afternoon. And if we move this forward here, you can see the HRRR, where you see these kind of black contours here is where the HRRR is kind of hinting at rotation in the cells. And you can see these aren't going to be a line of cells, a complete line at first. They're going to be individual cells that will be rotating. So we will have a tornado threat with these cells as we get into around 6 o'clock, especially again along the Western Kentucky Bluegrass parkways. The HRRR is not the only model showing this. I'll show another model here that's kind of hinting at the same thing as we get into the afternoon. Now, as we get to about 8 p.m., this line of storms is going to advance southward, and I do think that that is when they will start to congeal into a line. Give it a couple of hours after they kind of initiate and form. I think by about 8 or 9 o'clock, we'll have a line of shower or a line of severe storms here pushing from Somerset to Bowling Green, and I do think this is where you could get some significant wind gusts if the HRRR is correct. If you get those Boeing segments, you could get 70 to 75 mile an hour wind gusts as we get to about 8 o'clock on your Tuesday. Now, as we get to about 10 o'clock, this storm here, his storm activity is along the cold front. So I do want to show that before I show the wind field here. You'll see behind this front here is very, very nice temperatures. So you'll see these mid 70 dew points here in Kentucky, but behind it, which is coming behind it here on Wednesday and Thursday, we have low 50s and we could have temperatures in the 60s. So it's not all doom and gloom with this type of stormy and a very strong cold front type of setup, because we'll kind of get a relief of that heat and humidity as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. Now, I did want to show the wind pattern because this is the thing that is kind of causing this setup to be more of an anomaly or an upper echelon July type of setup, in my opinion. It's because we just don't see wind shear like this very often in the Ohio Valley or even in the Midwest. So we're going to be looking at the 500 millibar jet streak here. That's about 18,000 feet above our head. And here's your timestamp here. We'll look at Monday first, and this is just showing the ability for storms to grow, the wind field that they have about 18,000 feet above our heads. And as we get into about 10 o'clock tonight, you can see that jet streak kind of advancing here over where we had that enhanced risk for today in portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And then if we fast forward this here, you can see an overnight jet streak around 4 a.m. So we have that initial jet streak late on Monday night, another jet streak in the same area around 4 a.m. on Tuesday. And all of this is kind of following the flow here. And by 9 a.m., you'll see that jet streak's kind of pushing in. And that is why I do think we'll start to see that scattered shower and storm development, especially here in far northeast Kentucky, is because this short wave's kind of pushing in around 9 a.m. Early in the morning. And you'll see it's kind of advancing down here into northeast Kentucky, but it has Kentucky yet. Today. And that's what's going to lead to that morning round of storms here in northeast Kentucky. If we fast forward it here to the afternoon, you'll see that jet streak is kind of all over Kentucky now as we get into the afternoon. Another interesting way to look at this is looking at the 850 jet streak, and this will kind of show you where your best tornado potential is. And as we get into 5 p.m., you'll see we have a jet streak that's kind of a line. I want to zoom in here so you guys can kind of see where I'm highlighting. I think that this is really going to show you where the best severe risk is going to be as we get into the afternoon and evening hours. And this looks to be along and east of I-65, especially here in Kentucky. I think this is the area that is most likely to see severe weather as we get into Tuesday afternoon and evening. And I do think that we will have that supercell risk as we get into the afternoon and evening hours on Tuesday. Again, up here in northeast and far eastern Kentucky, you could get storms as early as noon to 1 o'clock as that first wave starts to push in. And then as we get into about 5, 6 o'clock, and we get another jet streak that kind of moves in here, this type of jet streak is not normal. Again, it's not normal in July. We don't see this very often in July. This is about a 35 to 40 knot jet streak. Up here in West Virginia, it's 45 to 50 knots. So it's a very strong jet streak, which is going to lead to some scattered severe storms as we get into Tuesday evening. But again, I want to reiterate, this is a 2-wave event. It looks like we're going to have 1 wave in the morning, mid to late morning, especially in far eastern Kentucky. And we'll have another wave of supercells that might be possible here, especially along the western Kentucky bluegrass parkways and south as we get into the afternoon on Tuesday. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. I did have a couple more things to show you guys. I think StormNet's doing a really good job kind of showing that threat that I've showed you guys here for the last couple of minutes. And I'm going to fast forward it here to about 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock, this is showing the wind risk here. And you can see there's definitely an elevated wind risk as we get to about 10 o'clock here in portions of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And I want you guys to track this because I'm going to advance this to about 7 a.m. And watch where this, again, we watch where that supercell, this will likely be a supercell here that is forming along the Iowa and Wisconsin and Illinois border. And if we fast forward this, well, that went way too fast there. Okay, I think it's skipping a couple hours. But if you fast forward it, you can see that it is moving, that same area is going to be moving towards northeast Kentucky. And it's interesting because StormNet's continuing to update, and it's showing this wind threat now in here as soon as 8 to 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So it's interesting because the data today, the storms are moving into Illinois a little bit quicker than data is showing. So I think StormNet is picking up on that and moving in our damaging wind threat a little bit earlier here in northeast Kentucky. And then if I fast forward it, you can see that kind of redevelopment here along the I-75 corridor as we get into the morning hours on Tuesday. If I fast forward it a couple more hours, you'll see that first wave is going to kind of push off to the south around 1 to 2 o'clock. We'll still be destabilizing here central and eastern Kentucky. And then as we get into around that 5 to 6 o'clock time frame, I think that's the second time frame for more storm redevelopment as we get into the afternoon. And I do think that these will initially be supercells that will congeal into a line, and we'll have that Boeing segment and embedded tornado risk as we get into the afternoon and the evening hours. So my voice is almost gone here. I have been at the Best Buddies Leadership Conference in Bloomington, Indiana all weekend, been screaming my head off. I've always loved that event. It's been a very good weekend. So I did want to get through one more graphic here from the National Weather Service, and then I will open it up to any questions that we have for any specific locations. Here's the graphic from the National Weather Service in Louisville. This was this morning, so they have not updated it yet. It actually usually comes out right about now. So let's see if they have the updated one. They do not have the updated one yet. So they'll have an updated graphic here. It's usually around 2:30 to 3 o'clock. So we'll look at that, or I will post that on my social media as soon as it comes out. But again, this is kind of just looking at that enhanced risk from Lexington and points off to the northeast. As we get into tomorrow, damaging winds, tornadoes, and flash flooding are our main risks as we get into tomorrow. Here's the wind risk. I really like this graphic from the National Weather Service because it shows the reasonable max wind speed. So you can expect 70 to 75 mile an hour wind gusts, especially if you're in this purple area. If you're in the red area, I still think 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts are possible, but especially in this purple area, you could expect 70 mile an hour wind gusts with storms as we get into your Tuesday. Here's the severe hail risk, and you'll see 1 to 2 inch in diameter hail is expected with those supercells as we get into the afternoon and evening hours on Tuesday. No hatch risks, so not extremely large hail is not expected, but we could have some hail with those supercells. And then the tornado risk, again, that 5% risk from Bardstown and points off to the northeast with the probability of tornadoes being possible. So 5% tornado risk, possible tornadoes. Again, we'll just have to see how the supercell risk kind of aligns itself. I think that'll be the highest tornado risk, the early to late afternoon window in central and eastern Kentucky as we get into tomorrow. Again, always have a plan, especially if you're in a mobile home. It only takes 60 to 70 mile an hour winds to completely wipe a mobile home off its foundation. So if you live in a mobile home or you know anybody that lives in a mobile home, make sure especially if you're in eastern Kentucky, if you're where that enhanced risk, that level 3 out of 5 risk is currently, and I'll put that back up on the screen when we get some questions here. Make sure that you have a plan in place in case severe weather hits tomorrow, and just make sure that everybody stays weather aware as we get into tomorrow, because I do think that severe weather is going to be likely as we get into tomorrow. So what I wanted to do now This was that orange area here is kind of the area that I circled where we had the best jet streak as we got into the afternoon hours. And this is kind of overlaid with the SBC outlook. So I'm going to leave it on here while we get any questions here. If you're in this orange area, it would not surprise me to see the SBC extend the enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk to a near Bowling Green and points off northeast. I think that's probably coming tonight. And we'll have to see if we get that SIG-1 wind risk or not. And it would not surprise me to kind of see that 5% tornado risk nudged a little bit southwest too, just for that risk for supercells as we get into the afternoon and evening hours. I did want to open up the floor to any questions that we had. If I didn't cover your specific area or location, now is the time to put any of those questions in the chat. Again, this looks like a two-wave setup. One wave in the early morning to late morning window in far northeast Kentucky. And then central Kentucky will have supercells, it looks like, in the early to mid-afternoon window. I will be storm chasing this event. I'll be live on YouTube. So I'm going to have my YouTube. I'm going to be live on the Kentucky_WX YouTube. I will post it to my personal X account here in the next couple of hours, and I'll be live continuously. So as soon as I get done with football practice tomorrow morning, I'm going to look at some data, and it looks like it's going to be a very backyard kind of local chase here in central Kentucky. So when I fire up the stream, I'll be live throughout the whole stream. So I've got my stream set up, and I'm excited to show you guys what I've been working hard on YouTube. So I am excited for that. Excited to get out and kind of give you guys ground truth here. I know Corey's going to have us another live update tonight on Facebook, YouTube, and X, and then we'll have those live streams tomorrow with live storm chasers on the ground. So I'm extremely tired. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's been a long weekend here. I'm actually about to take me the longest nap of my life here as soon as I get done with this video. So again, I've got the floor open for any questions. Don't think that we have any. I do think that we'll have widespread severe weather tomorrow. I definitely think widespread severe weather looks likely. I don't know about significant severe weather, but I do think that, again, we have a very saturated ground right now. So it's not going to take high wind gusts to bring down trees, or tree branches. And to cause issues. So I think if we do get that 70 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts, that is possible. I do think that that will definitely be enough to cause some widespread issues as we get into tomorrow afternoon and evening. So just make sure you're weather aware as we get into tomorrow. That's the biggest thing that I could tell you. We'll continue to have these live updates here at Zero Meter Chasers as we get going. So again, I appreciate all the support. Would not surprise me to see the SBC extend that enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk further southwest towards Bowling Green here in the next couple of, really that won't happen until midnight tonight. But if you live along I-65 and points east, I think that's where our highest severe risk is tomorrow. So that's all I got for you guys. Really appreciate all the support, everybody coming in here today. And again, we'll continue to have live updates here at Zero Meter Chasers. We'll have another one tonight on all of our platforms, and then we'll be live with radar coverage and with live storm chasers on the ground. So I'm excited to show you guys what we have been working on. So we'll have live updates tomorrow. I appreciate everybody coming in here, and I hope everybody has a safe and blessed day. Thank you, guys.